Judge revealed as a hero after cop exposes racial bias. An amazing turn that changed everything. In the quaint town of Maplewood, where every face is familiar and every story intertwined, Judge Martha Anderson had always stood like a steadfast lighthouse, guiding her community through the storms of justice. At 54, the widow, with silver strands in her hair and wisdom etched gently across her features, navigated the complexities of the courtroom with unwavering belief in fairness. It was not just her profession. It was the love she had poured into raising her two grown children, instilling in them values of compassion and integrity. But now, those ideals were being put to the ultimate test. Malik Johnson, a bright 21-year-old black man, stood accused of a crime he didn't commit. The air in the town grew thick with tension, leaving a palpable heaviness in the atmosphere that crept from the barbershop on Main Street to the PTA meetings in the schools. Voices rising in discontent filled the air, as whispers of racial prejudice and judgment flared up like a wildfire. Martha could sense it. The storm was brewing, and it wasn't just rain on the horizon, it was fear and uncertainty that clung to the town like humidity. She could hear her late husband's voice in her mind, urging her to believe in the goodness of people, but the unrest challenged every ounce of that faith. Officer Danny Brooks had once prided himself on being the good cop, but in recent months, shadows of PTSD from a traumatic incident gnawed at him, clashing fiercely with his desire to uphold justice. As he uncovered evidence suggesting Malik's case may be tangled in racial bias, he found himself at a crossroads, battling a raging storm within. Memories of Bruce, a friend lost to the system's injustice, haunted him, urging him to confront what he knew was wrong, which was what needed to be done, though it would come at potentially great personal cost. As the courtroom drama unfolded, the stakes escalated beyond mere legal wrangling. It became a fight against the deep-rooted biases that had festered over generations. Tension electrified the courtroom, and the air crackled with expectation when Danny finally took the stand. His voice trembled but rang clear, unveiling the evidence that could turn the tide in Malik's favor. The palpable silence was a collective breath held tight, vulnerability shared among all who listened. Martha's heart raced as she felt the atmosphere shift. This wasn't just a trial, it was a reckoning. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As the evidence began to paint a different picture, hope pulsed like the heartbeat of the courtroom, igniting a fire that could not be easily extinguished. An unexpected alliance formed between Danny and Martha, united in their desire to confront the overwhelming tide of prejudice. Together, they planned to launch a groundbreaking program for racial reconciliation, seeking to heal the cracks that ran deep in Maplewood's foundation. Yet, even as families tentatively started to reconnect, doubts were sown into the very fabric of their community. The fear of change loomed, holding tightly onto the narratives the townsfolk had grown comfortable with. Martha stared into the darkness of her empty home that night. An ache echoed within her heart. Had they merely stirred the waters without diving into the depths? The challenges ahead were mountainous, and the darkness whispering of old fears threatened to cast shadows on the emerging light of unity. Would the town rally together to heal, or would it instead retreat back into its entrenched biases? The unresolved questions clawed at her, igniting a flicker of hope in the midst of uncertainty, leaving her anxious to discover the outcome of their fight for justice. The dawn broke over Maplewood, its warm light spilling across the town like a gentle embrace. But for Martha, the day felt heavy, burdened by the weight of uncertainty. The courtroom drama of the previous day still echoed in her mind, intertwining with the haunting silence of her empty home. She was gripped by an unsettling mix of hope and fear, and as she prepared her morning coffee, she glanced out the window, watching as life unfolded outside. Children hurried to school, families greeted one another, and neighbors continued with their routines, seemingly unaware of the troubled waters beneath the surface. At the courthouse that morning, the atmosphere buzzed with anticipation. Word had spread like wildfire about Danny's brave revelations. Today, they would open discussions about the proposed reconciliation program, but Martha knew that even the most necessary changes could ignite conflict. As she made her way to her office, she felt the eyes of her colleagues on her, each gaze loaded with unspoken questions. Would she succeed? Or would she falter in her quest for justice and unity? Judge Anderson, a voice called, breaking her thoughts. It was Alan, a young clerk who had been working for her since she first took the bench. Are you ready for this? Ready as I'll ever be, she replied, forcing a smile. Yet something in her chest thrummed nervously. She knew there were challenges ahead, and the path was anything but cleared as the meeting commenced. The room filled quickly with representatives from various community groups, police officers, social workers, and citizens eager to share their thoughts. The air felt charged. You could almost touch the divide in the room. Martha took a deep breath, her hands trembling slightly as she dismissed her nerves. She couldn't become distracted. This was about something bigger than herself. Thank you all for being here, she started. Today marks a significant step for Maplewood. We have an opportunity to address the bias and division that has lingered for long enough. It's time for healing. As she spoke, she could see different reactions playing out before her. Some faces showed skepticism, others a flicker of hope. It struck her how the dialogues echoing inside this room were merely reflections of the larger conversations occurring outside. Families were divided, friends were conflicted, and the specter of prejudice loomed large. Danny took the floor next, his voice steady yet passionate. He spoke about the evidence he had discovered, the need for accountability in law enforcement, and the importance of community trust. Inspired by his delivery, many in the room began to stand and speak their truths. The voices rose and tumbled over one another, a chaotic symphony of longing for change. But amidst the united voices of those yearning for a more inclusive Maplewood, Martha spotted a few individuals at the back, arms crossed and unwavering. Their discontent was palpable, and she felt her heart race. What if they were unwilling to engage in this journey? What if they actively pushed against the tide of change? As the meeting progressed, a young woman in the audience spoke up, her voice trembling. I lost my father to unfair policing, and I'm scared this won't change anything. Her confession hung heavy in the air, a painful reminder that change was risky and fraught with deep emotions. That Martha's heart sank at the weight of the words. This was personal for so many, not just a political agenda. She needed to bridge that fear with hope. I understand your pain, Martha replied, her voice filled with empathy. But it starts with honest conversations. Together, we can build a foundation of trust that ensures justice for everyone. After a long pause, chairs scraped as people began to signal their agreement. Slowly, it began a tentative commitment to discuss, to connect, to move forward. It was imperfect and raw, but it was something. As they all left the meeting, Martha felt the faintest glimmer of hope flicker to life, soaring over the tension that had lived in the room. Yet, doubts pushed back against that hope. Were they truly ready to take this leap together? Driving home that evening, Martha turned the corner past the barber shop, where she could hear familiar voices rising in spirited debate about the day's events. The shadows of fear and reticence still loomed, but perhaps the sparks of understanding had ignited a flame of real possibility. Then, a single thought cut through her. If they dived into the darkness of the past, how could they ensure that the light of justice would not flicker out? What would be the next challenge they would face together? She felt her heart race again, charged with uncertainty and determination. Her phone pinged, and a message from Danny appeared on the screen. Let us meet. I think trouble is brewing. And with that, the sense of urgency coiled in the pit of her stomach, compelling her to prepare for whatever was to come next. The next morning in Maplewood was gray and overcast, casting shadows over the town. Martha felt the weight of the clouds pressing down, mirroring her own encroaching sense of dread. Danny's message had rattled her like an unexpected thunderclap. What kind of trouble was brewing? She couldn't shake the worry that festered in her gut, tightening with each passing minute. After a quick breakfast, she made her way to the cafe down the street. The little place usually buzzed with laughter and the aroma of fresh pastries, but today it felt subdued, whispers bouncing between the tables like nervous birds. As she stepped inside, a hush fell over the room. The conversation stopped, and a few eyes flickered toward her, full of curiosity and speculation. "Morning, Martha," called Betty, the barista, forcing a smile. "Did you hear? There are rumors about a protest forming. Folks are getting restless out there, especially after what Danny said." "Yeah, I heard something," Martha responded, her voice steady despite her growing concern. "I'm meeting him in an hour." "Any more details?" Betty shook her head. "Just that tensions are rising. People are split. Some want to support you, while others are dead set against change. It's all anyone's talking about." Martha nodded, trying to hide the tremor in her hands as she wrapped them around her cup. It was a delicate balance, fostering hope while navigating the storm of discontent. She couldn't lose sight of why she was doing this. Still, the very notion of a protest made her apprehensive. What if it turned violent? What if it spiraled out of control? After her coffee, she decided to take a detour through the park. The air was thick, electrifying her senses with tension. She watched kids play on the swings, their laughs contrasting with the weight of uncertainty looming in her heart. Everything felt at odds, joy and worry dancing cruelly together. When she arrived at the spot Danny had suggested, a small, weathered bench near the town square, he was already waiting, staring into the distance. His face bore lines of worry, and as Martha approached, she could see the resolve in his eyes. "Thanks for coming," he said, his voice low. "I didn't want to alarm you, but there are factions forming. Some don't want things to change, and they're organizing." Martha swallowed hard. "What's the plan, then? We can't let this spiral." Danny hesitated. "I think we need to hold a community forum, but we have to be strategic. Give everyone a chance to speak, but also control the narrative. Otherwise, it could become a shouting match. Don't we risk making things worse?" she asked, worries twisting in her mind. "You heard the woman in the meeting. They're scared, and fear can fuel anger. If we don't try to contain the anger," Danny replied firmly, "it'll fester and explode. We have to show them this isn't just about policy, it's about people, all of us." His words struck a chord, igniting a flicker of hope within her. Maybe he was right. Maybe if they could create a safe space grounded in respect, it could change everything. Suddenly, a commotion in the square caught her attention, shouts rising from a gathering crowd. Martha's heart raced as she and Danny turned to witness several local citizens holding up signs, some reading "Justice for All," while others shouted tear-filled slogans of their own. It was happening right before her eyes. "Go push for change," a voice shouted. "You're not alone." Martha could barely make out the words, tangled emotions spilling into the square like water over rocks. She turned to Danny, realizing they stood on the brink of something monumental. This wasn't just about her or Danny anymore. This was about their community, holding its breath, waiting for direction. As their eyes locked, she felt a sudden swell of determination. "We'll meet again tonight, lead the forum. We can't let them drown us in chaos." Danny nodded, but the look in his eyes hinted at the gravity of their task ahead. "Then let us make sure we come prepared. We need to understand their fears to guide them toward hope." With that resolved, Martha glanced back at the crowd, her heart pounding in her chest. Today could spark lasting change, but it could also ignite a conflagration. What awaited them in their quest for unity? Would they rise together or succumb to the forces of division? As the urgency washed over her, the thought struck hard. If they were going to bridge the chasm of distrust, they had to forge a bond of understanding before the flames took hold. The sky still wore its heavy gray cloak as Martha and Danny walked back toward the heart of the town, the voices of the crowd echoing in their ears, an electric mix of urgency and fear. Martha's heart raced, vulnerable emotions clashing like waves on a rocky shore. They were standing at a pivotal edge. One misstep could lead to chaos or unity. As they reached the cafe, the familiar scent of brewed coffee greeted them like a friend. But the crowd inside had grown too, huddled over their mugs, exchanging hushed words that floated around the room like whispers of wind through the trees. Martha and Danny took a moment to gather themselves before stepping inside. "Do you think anyone will come tonight?" Martha asked, biting her lip as anxiety pressed against her ribs. "More than you think, I bet," Danny replied, his tone trying to wrap her in warmth. "This is an important moment. People want to be heard. They want answers." "Answers, huh?" She scoffed lightly, trying to break the tension. "I hope we have them." Just then, Betty emerged from behind the counter, her expression earnest. "I heard what you two are planning. Count me in. I'll help with the preparations." The warmth of her support brought a surge of relief. Martha nodded, grateful for the encouragement. Thank you, Betty. We could use all the help we can get. The chatter began to swell around them again, the atmosphere lightening as they leaned into conversations about how to support the forum. Martha's resolve slowly transformed into determination with each gust of camaraderie that breezed through the cafe. As the day wore on, Martha and Danny brainstormed together. They jotted down critical points they wanted to address, trying to anticipate the questions and fears swirling in the minds of their neighbors. What if they didn't have the right words? What if the meeting spiraled into accusations and finger-pointing? The doubts danced like phantoms, but they pushed through. As the sun dipped lower in the sky, the evening cast its golden light over Maplewood. People began to gather at the town hall, holding tight to their signs, some written with hope, others clutching tightly to their fears. Martha stood outside, feeling the pulse of the crowd beneath her skin, a symphony of uncertainty and anticipation. Look, there's Tom. Danny pointed to a figure emerging from the shadows, walking purposefully toward the front. He was one of the most passionate voices against change, the last person Martha expected to arrive. Her throat tightened. Was this a sign of trouble? Suddenly, he spotted her and walked directly in her direction. Martha, he called, his face pinched with concern. I want to talk. The crowd around them stilled as he approached, eyes widening with curiosity. She could sense their collective breath held tight in expectation. I know you're leading this forum, he continued, intensity pouring from his words. But you need to understand where a lot of us are coming from. It's about safety. We can't just charge ahead without considering the consequences. Martha felt the weight of his statement. It was a jagged truth, one that nobody could ignore. I get that, Tom. But it's also about making sure our voices are part of the process. Fear shouldn't drive us apart, she replied, her voice tremulous yet firm. Danny stepped up beside her, shoulders squared. Look, folks, let us not keep the lines of communication closed. This is our chance to talk it out, to find common ground. We owe it to ourselves and this community. The crowd murmured, a wave of uncertainty thrumming through the air. For a brief moment, hope flickered, fighting against the tide of tension. Martha's heart swelled as she watched people shifting closer to one another, expressions softening even amidst the hostility. That spark could ignite something powerful, perhaps a new way forward. Before she could gather her thoughts further, her phone buzzed in her pocket. Glancing down, she saw it was a text from an unknown number. I have information that could change everything. Meet me tonight after the forum. Her heart sank as new. Worries crashed over her. What could this mean? Could it possibly add to the already delicate situation? She looked up, meeting Danny's gaze. The night ahead felt momentous, tinged with both hope and the fear of the unknown. Would she dare to open that door? As the crowd breathed in unison, she knew they were all waiting for what would happen next, every moment a choice. In pursuing change, Martha was stepping into a deeper unknown, one that might just reshape her world. What awaited her in that clandestine meeting? Would she discover a truth that tied them all together, or one that could rip them apart? The crowd buzzed with a mix of anxious energy and expectant hope, each person waiting for something to spark, for a voice to rise above the murmurs. Martha's heart thumped loud in her chest as she slowly stepped to the front, the weight of what lay ahead pressing against her. She could feel Danny at her side, his steadfast presence grounding her as she prepared to take that leap. Welcome, everyone, Martha started, her voice steadying as she glanced over the sea of faces, some etched with worry, others firm with resolve. Thank you for being here tonight. We're in this together, whether we agree or not. She caught Tom's gaze in the crowd. The intensity in his eyes reminded her of the responsibilities laid before them. When she continued, the words poured from her heart. I know there are fears about the changes we're facing. Fear can bind us, but it can also blind us. We owe it to ourselves to share our concerns openly. As she spoke, she saw heads nodding, a ripple of understanding flowing through the group. Encouraged, she pressed on, determined to build a bridge. Whether we support or oppose the changes, we are still a community. Each of us has a voice, and we deserve to be heard. Danny stepped up next to her, his expression serious yet warm. Before we get started with debates and discussions, let us take a moment to listen to one another. To share stories, not just statistics. Because at the base of all these fears are real people, real lives. Martha recognized the impact of his words. They were more than just talk. They were an invitation to vulnerability. One by one, people began to stand and share their stories, the tension in the air shifting from fear to a shared weight of experience. Differences began to melt away as voices intertwined like threads in a tapestry of community. But then, amidst the heartfelt exchanges, her phone buzzed again, the familiar tug of anxiety pulling at her stomach. Martha fought the urge to check it, but couldn't help herself. She tapped the screen, revealing another message from that unknown number. Meet me. You need to see the truth before it's too late. With dread pooling in her stomach, she looked up to see Betty stepping forward, her voice ringing clear. We can't let fear divide us any longer. What if we face it together? We can't keep letting misunderstandings breed anger and resentment. That simple statement lodged itself in Martha's heart. It was true. The words hung in the air, gathering power, igniting a sense of collective momentum. She sensed a shift in the room, faces softening with empathy and urgency. But the warmth of that connection was swiftly tainted by the nagging sensation of what the text might imply. As the forum continued, the night unfurled with surprising moments of clarity and shared laughter, laughter that mingled uncomfortably with the weight of her distraction. Every single time Martha tried to tune in, the pull of the unknown meeting gnawed at her, a constant reminder that something deeper was stirring just beneath the surface. Finally, the conversation swayed toward tighter topics, and the first flickers of discord began to re-emerge as truths clashed and emotions flared. Martha felt the shift, the breeze stirring chaos anew as grievances were aired. She opened her mouth to speak, but then her gaze swept across the room and caught Tom's eyes. Each held a flicker of realization, a promise of awareness ready to ignite. I think we can do this, he said, uncharacteristically hopeful, his voice cutting through the rising tensions. If we work together, but trust is key. We owe it to ourselves to find that balance. Martha nodded, and just then, her phone buzzed again, this time a tight jolt of urgency sent through her body. She swiped to reveal yet another cryptic message. You need to know what's at stake. Now, the weight of the moment pressed down hard on her chest. Could she truly step into the unknown, balancing the fragile threads of trust being woven that very night? As she braced for what was to come, the question lingered. Could the truth she was about to unveil become a clarion call for unity, or would it tear her town apart? Martha took a deep breath, feeling the eyes of the crowd on her, each pierced with a mix of hope and apprehension. This was the moment. She had to choose clarity over fear, to cut through the tension surrounding her with the truth she carried. The room hummed softly, an eerie contrast to the storm brewing inside her. Before anything else, I want each of you to know that I understand what you're all afraid of, Martha began, her voice rising above the buzzing murmurs. But fear can be our worst enemy. It can turn us against each other when all we really need is to stand together. Tom nodded, visibly rallying behind her words, and it bolstered her resolve. You all deserve to know why I've been receiving these messages. It's about our community. It's about the changes that could affect us all, but there's more. Much more. An uneasy silence settled over the room. The air felt electric, thick with anticipation. She saw Danny's face, encouraging and steady, and it was just the anchor she needed. Someone is trying to manipulate our fears, to use this moment against us, she said, her heart racing. I need you to understand that there's a bigger game at play, something that ties our concerns together. A ripple of murmurs passed through the crowd. Reactions varied, some leaned closer, intrigued, while others crossed their arms defensively. She took a step closer to them, as if to bridge that invisible divide. Martha caught sight of Betty again, her brow furrowing, ready to step in. But Martha raised her hand for silence. Thanks to some information I've unearthed, I believe there's a link between the changes proposed and a history of bias that our town needs to reckon with. Gasps echoed around her, disbelief interwoven with curiosity. Racial bias? Here? Someone muttered in the back, and the air sharpened with tension. Martha felt a knot tighten in her chest, but she pushed on. Yes, I believe it's time to address the past directly, not just in hushed whispers. We cannot allow our fears to cloud our judgment when it comes to justice. Then, a voice broke through from the far side of the room. It was Marcus, an outspoken member of the community. That's a dangerous accusation, Martha. Are you sure you understand what you're suggesting? Martha took a moment, the weight of responsibility pressing against her. This was more than just a debate. I'm not interested in accusing anyone without facts, but I've seen enough to sense that we're being led down a path of division. I think we can get to a better place, but it will take courage. For one another. For ourselves. The atmosphere shifted again. Faces once set in disbelief softened into contemplation. Perhaps there was truth in her words, echoed in experiences no one had dared to share yet. As she glanced around, feeling the growing connection among them, her phone buzzed again. This time, she didn't hesitate. She slipped it from her pocket, glancing down urgently, the new message burning through her like an ember. You are stirring the pot, Martha. The truth will consume you. Her heart raced, and she quickly turned her attention back to the crowd. She could sense the emotional thread weaving through the room as everyone absorbed the gravity of the discussion. The sense of unity they had built now hung precariously. Friends, we may not agree on everything, but we must find it in ourselves to face these truths. Together, bringing them to light will strengthen us, not tear us apart, she pleaded, searching each face for a flicker of understanding. Just as the group began to process her words, a startling clap of thunder rolled outside, the sky darkening beyond the windows. It felt like nature itself was mirroring the uncertainty that hung thickly in the air. Murmurs of surprise and concern rippled through the crowd. I'll tell you this, Martha continued, conviction swelling in her voice. These conversations are chances for change. No matter what happens next, we have opened a door. Will we step through it together? The tension was palpable, the next moment teetering on a knife's edge. There was a crossroads ahead, one filled with both risk and potential. And as Martha held her breath, waiting for a response, she could almost hear the echo of the unanswered questions in the air. What truths would they choose to face? Would they have the courage to embrace unity amidst the darkness? As silence enveloped the room, Martha dared to glance beyond the faces staring back at her. She could feel the pulse of uncertainty, the hesitation that danced in the air. Then, one by one, a few heads began to nod. Together, Tom spoke up, his voice strong, cutting through the tension. We've always stood together. We can face this too. A ripple of agreement ran through the crowd. Martha felt her heart lift, even as the growl of thunder outside reminded her of the storm gathering strength. Just then, Betty stepped forward, her expression a mix of skepticism and curiosity. What kind of change are we talking about? What does facing the truth look like? Martha met her gaze directly, grateful for the opening. It means having the hard conversations. It means listening to stories that have long been ignored. She paused, letting her words settle like the dust in the air. It means speaking up for each other, even when it's uncomfortable. I'm not sure this will even make a difference. Marcus chimed in again, his tone still combative, but with a hint of contemplation. People will push back. They want to hear it. Exactly, Martha said, eager to engage. But isn't that the essence of community? We challenge each other. We grow together. We might not all agree, but we owe it to this town to at least try. Don't you want better for our children? For the next generation? Danny's hand shot up, restless, as he leaned forward to speak. I've heard things, seen things. He took a breath, looking around at the faces he had known forever. People are scared to talk. Everyone views this as a powder keg waiting to explode. Then let us defuse it. Here and now, Martha urged, her voice passionate, hopeful. Let us start with the stories. Let us share what has been buried. An honest conversation is the beginning of healing. The crowd stirred, people shifting, weighing what this could mean for them more than a conversation, perhaps a reckoning. Then, a young woman, unfamiliar to Martha, stood up from the back. I'll share my story, she said, her voice unsteady. I never felt welcome here. Not really. There've been moments that made it clear I wasn't like most of you. I thought I was just being dramatic, but now I see it matters. A heavy silence filled the room, the tension of past pains laid bare. Martha felt a rush of emotion welling inside her. She had hoped for this, but now faced the gravity of it. Would they dare to be vulnerable? Would this woman's story resonate, or would it scare people away? Thank you, Martha managed to say, her words trembling slightly. Your bravery is the spark we need. From the sidelines, she caught Danny's eye, and he gave her a small, encouraging nod. Encouragement flowed in waves, stirring something new within the crowd. Slowly, others began to share their own experiences, hurt, confusion, and moments of hope buried beneath skepticism. But then, amidst the insurance of solidarity, Martha's phone buzzed fiercely in her pocket once more. The message blurred as she read it. "You don't know what you're risking, Martha. Some truths are best left buried." Her stomach dropped. She thought of the young woman, Jessie, sharing her truth and the growing connection in the room. How could she turn back now? But the stakes were rising. The storm outside raged, and the voices around her grew louder, each person wrestling with their fear and hope. Martha gazed over the crowd, a newfound determination in her heart. "We're all here together, and we can't turn away now. Whatever happens next, we face it as one." Just as her words settled, the sky outside seemed to crack open, pouring rain down, drumming against the roof in a frenzy. The rain was pouring down now, but it felt cleansing, refreshing, as if nature itself was siding with them. But as she looked around, catching the flickers of doubt still lingering in some eyes, one question lingered in her mind. Would the truth truly unite them, or tear them apart? Martha felt the weight of those uncertain eyes on her, mixing with the sound of rain pounding the roof like a heartbeat. She could see fear, hope, and doubt swirling. It was all right there, raw and real. The rain was relentless now, but it seemed to drive the energy in the room, shoving their emotions to the surface. "Listen," she said, her voice breaking through the noise. "Jessie's courage has opened a door, and we need to walk through it together. Each story matters. It's our path forward." Jessie was still standing, now with a new spark in her eyes. "I'm not alone," she said, glancing around as if gathering strength from the shared vulnerability. "If I can step out of my shell, maybe, just maybe, we can all do the same." More people began opening up too. A father spoke about his struggles and simply trying to protect his kids from the biases he faced every day. An elderly woman shared how she moved to this town under the illusion it would be a safer haven, only to discover a silent prejudice she had never encountered before. The roar of the storm outside matched the rising emotional tide within the room, as if the elements themselves were blaring encouragement. Martha's heart raced. The fear she felt from the message still clung to the back of her mind, yet it was overshadowed by the realization that they were really connecting. Anger and regret were being voiced, and with each story shared, that invisible barrier began to crumble. "Maybe the change we crave isn't just about the stories," Danny suggested, a soft intensity in his eyes. "It's about listening, understanding, and then taking action." He paused, the room hanging on every word. "We can make this place better. Together. Not just in here, but out there in the real world." A voice chimed in from the back. "But how do we start? People like Marcus will argue. They want to listen." It was a reminder of the uphill battle ahead, yet it felt less like discouragement now and more like a challenge. Martha stepped forward, heart pounding but firm in her resolve. "We start small. We create a safe space right here, open to all voices. Let this be the beginning. We can form a council, arrange community dialogues, advocate for those who feel silent. We must show that everyone deserves to be heard." The response was electric, a ripple of murmurs, some agreeing, others still confused. Yet there was a collective feeling of hope that was just starting to bloom, like the first hints of dawn breaking through the clouds. Then, through that charge in the atmosphere, Marcus stood again. "You really believe we can change things? That we can bridge this divide?" His voice was uncertain but less confrontational. "Yes," Martha replied, her throat tight with emotion. "I do. If we don't believe in each other, we won't ever change. Please, let us put aside the hurt for a moment and imagine together what this town could be." The rain continued, but it felt different now, the energy inside the room blooming as those shackles of doubt began to loosen. As they started discussing ideas, a fire of determination lit between them. It was palpable. Still, beneath it all, Martha felt that unsettling weight the message still pressed in her pocket, lurking like a storm cloud trying to darken the moment. Yet she couldn't bring herself to look at it. Not now. As the last remnants of sun dipped behind the clouds, she turned to face her neighbors, their faces alive with possibility. Little did they know, the storm outside was only a precursor to the real tempests they might have to face. She took a deep breath, gathering her thoughts. "Whatever we decide, remember," she declared, her voice strong, "we take this step together. And when the time comes when the truth spills out in ways we're unprepared for, we need to be ready." Then, just as she spoke, Another thunderclap rent the air. The lights flickered, and for a heartbeat, everything felt frozen. Martha glanced at her phone, her heart pounding. Should she reveal what she held back? Would sharing that truth deepen the connection or tear them apart? The moment seemed to hang in the air, heavy with anticipation. What would they choose to face next? The moment stretched, each heartbeat echoing in the silence. Martha's mind raced. The message in her pocket felt heavier now, as if it was pulling her down into a sea of confusion. She knew it held power information that could shatter illusions or build bridges, depending on how she shared it. Wait a second, Danny's voice broke through. What are we really afraid of? It's the fear of being judged, isn't it? He looked around the room, his gaze steady. We fear how our truths will be received. Martha nodded slowly. Yes, but maybe that's the first barrier we need to dismantle. She took a step forward. Together, we have to show up as our truest selves, no matter the judgment. The air crackled with tension as another round of thunder rumbled outside. Martha could see small flickers of hesitation and apprehension on the faces around her, but also a glimmer of something more resolve. Jessie took a step closer. What if we share our truth? Even if it's messy? What if we just let ourselves be seen and heard, no matter what comes next? There was a collective breath, and then a softness spread through the group as her words sunk in. How freeing it could be to step into authenticity, to bring forth the pain without pretense. I can start, a voice chimed in, a timid yet determined tone. It was Marcus, his brow furrowed but his resolve growing. I've had a hard time accepting that I'm part of the problem. I want to be better, but I didn't know where to begin. Maybe acknowledging it is a start. Martha felt her heart swell as other voices encouraged him. Yes, Marcus. That takes courage, someone shouted. With each shared experience, the floodgates opened wider. They spoke of moments that shaped them, experiences that hurt, and desires to change the room grew warmer with each story. It was as if they were threading a tapestry of healing and hope, spinning fragile strands into something bright and beautiful. But that nagging message in Martha's pocket persisted. Beneath the stories, fear still lurked like shadows threatening to consume the light they were finding. She glanced down, wishing it would disappear. I need to say something, Danny declared, his voice rising above the gathering storm outside. What we're doing here, sharing these moments, it's more important than each of our fears. We can inspire a wave of change if we keep this momentum going. We have to act. Martha's breath quickened. What if we took our stories out of this room? Imagine if we could reach others, bring more voices into this space. Show them they aren't alone. We need awareness, Jessie added. People need to hear what we're facing. What if we arranged a community event, invite everyone? Let this be a gathering where we all share. The idea ignited the group. Conversations erupted, buzzing like electricity. Plans began forming. Critically important, they saw it now, they could be that safe space for so many, a catalyst for something larger than any of them alone. Let us make it happen. One by one, voices joined in, growing stronger, unified. Yet in the back of her mind, a nagging question lingered. Martha's heart raced with apprehension. As she caught Marcus's eye, her fingers brushed the outline of the message, threatening to spill over. In that moment, she realized they weren't just on the brink of change, they were standing on the edge of something monumental. The outside storm grew fiercer, mirroring the brewing tempest within her. Before we rush into this, there's something you all need to know, Martha began, her voice catching in her throat. And just like that, the tension in the room shifted once more, eyes turning toward her with expectant gazes. What if what I have to share could change everything? The thunder rumbled. She held her breath, the weight of her decision crashing over her like the rain on the roof. She had to choose. Share the truth or hold it back. Which path would lead to healing? As the lights flickered again, she grasped her phone tightly, the decision looming like a shadow across the gathering. Would her truth be a beacon or a burden? And would they still be willing to stand together after it was revealed? The storm raged outside, battering against the windows and shaking the very foundation of the town hall. Inside, the air buzzed with anticipation, and Martha felt the weight of countless gazes upon her. This was her moment, and she knew it. Everyone, she said, her voice steady despite the tremors of uncertainty coursing through her. What I need to share, it's difficult, but it could change everything. She glanced around, meeting the eyes of her friends, neighbors, and those still finding their place in the room. She took a deep breath, letting the words tumble forth. I've received messages. An anonymous source is threatening to expose deeper, hidden truths within our community, things that could ignite more division if allowed to fester in the dark. Gasps rippled through the crowd, uncertainty mixing with curiosity, the energy tangibly shifting in the room. She could see unease reflected in the faces of those around her, but also recognition, a shared understanding that this was about more than just one person's fear. It was about everyone. Every story wrapped together in a fragile tapestry that had the potential to either unravel or strengthen them all. Martha pressed on, her heart racing. I've been afraid to share this information because I didn't want to spiral into chaos. But pretending it doesn't exist won't make it vanish. This community is at a crossroads, and we have to decide how we want our story to unfold. A flash of lightning illuminated the faces in the room, morphing expressions of shock into determination. This is why we need to fully engage, embrace our vulnerabilities, Danny chimed in, his voice a steadying force amidst rising emotions. We can't let fear dictate our journey. We have to confront what lies beneath together. The crowd murmured, trading glances and nods of agreement, and Martha felt a flicker of hope ignite in her chest. As raw stories spilled forth before her, those once kept hidden began to merge into a collective understanding. The young woman who had first shared her experience, Jessie, stepped forward again. We're stronger together. We know where fear leads us, it divides. Let us not let them do that to us. I echo that. A deeper voice called from the back. It was Marcus. If there are truths underneath that need exposing, let us face them. Let us be the community that pushes back against fear and finds strength in our diversity. It starts now. That call to action rippled through the crowd, and in that moment, Martha understood the energy in the room had transformed into one of shared purpose. They were no longer just individuals. They were united as a community, ready to take on whatever awaited them. As the storm continued to unleash its fury outside, she felt a surge of power in the gathering. Let us be a bridge, not a barrier. The messiness of truth might be hard to hear, but we can confront it together. We can shape a better Maplewood for everyone. Cheering erupted, and the voices soared like an anthem against the thunderclaps. The passion ignited deeper connections and solidarity. Each voice flooded like a river, eroding the reservations that once held them back. In that pivotal moment, as Martha stepped back and absorbed the warmth of unity filling the room, she felt lighter, more liberated than she had in weeks. Yet the message lingered in her pocket, tempting her beneath the surface of hope. Would confronting these truths truly forge strength? She took a small step back from the group, determined to uncoil that lingering fear, to share the full weight of the truth she had kept too long. Listen, everyone, she summoned courage one last time, her voice ringing clear. Before we all go further, we need to understand that there may be forces acting against this change. People who might benefit from our fears not being resolved. If anyone tries to threaten us, we will meet it together. The crowd held its breath, tension lingering like an electric charge in the air. Then we will not falter, Danny declared, lifting his voice above the whispers of doubt. We'll stand resilient. We need each voice, contributing to a world we can build for generations ahead. A newfound determination rippled across the town hall as the rain hammered down like freedom being unleashed. Eyes were locked, hands gripped shoulders, connection sparking anew with each heartbeat echoing around the space. After all they had endured, they were ready not just for the change ahead, but to face whatever secrets the future may lay bare. Martha smiled, hearts soaring as they joined hands, an unbreakable bond forged in vulnerability, connection, and an unwavering commitment to justice. Together, they would rise above the storm and embrace the dawn of their collective awakening. And in that act of unity, Maplewood surged forward not as individuals, but as one community, powerful and poised to weather whatever challenge came their way. Now it was time to make a decision, to step fully into their own truths and shape a brighter future. The storm outside could not compete with the fire igniting inside, ready to blaze a path toward healing. This was their turning point, and they would emerge stronger than ever. As the rain danced against the windows, they stood bound by purpose, hearts united. Now was the time for action. Do you feel that electric energy? It's the moment to act together. You need to subscribe now to keep following this journey. Don't wait, not even one more second. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and show your support for this community. Share your reactions, we want to hear your thoughts in the comments. And share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this incredible transformation. Join us as we break down barriers and build a future together.